Microscopic Milton is very small indeed. He lives in a clock on the mantelpiece in the parlor of a house that belongs to a lady named Mrs. Witherspoon. No one knows he's there, apart from Milton's friend Douglas, who spends most of his time asleep in front of the fire, and of course, you. Microscopic Milton and his best friend Douglas were playing in the snow. It was quite deep and came right up to Douglas's knees. When Milton stepped onto it, he disappeared completely. Suddenly, Mrs. Witherspoon appeared and Milton kept out of sight. She had just baked yet another batch of pies. "I'm not sure that I've made enough," she said. You just don't know when someone may stop by." And off she went to buy flour and sugar so that she could make even more. "Keep an eye on things, Douglas," she called. "And when I get back, one of those pies will be yours." Douglas loved pies. "Let's find somewhere to play where the snow's not so thick," shivered Milton. "Hey, what's that strange noise?" said Milton. "It's coming from that hole in the oak tree." Douglas lifted Milton up to the hole, and as he peered inside, he saw two very cold squirrels. "You poor things," he said. "Go into the house and sit by the fire. Oh, and help yourself to pie. Mrs. Witherspoon baked them just in case anyone stopped by." Douglas wasn't entirely sure that was what she had meant, but the squirrels looked so pleased he didn't argue. The delicious smell of hot pies drifted out from the kitchen. All over the garden, birds and animals were peeping out from their hiding places and sniffing the air. "They all look so cold and hungry," thought Milton, and before Douglas could stop him, he had invited every last one of them into the house. It began to snow again, and a snowflake landed right on top of Milton's head. "Boo," he said. "Let's go inside where it's warm." When Milton and Douglas opened the parlor door, they couldn't believe their eyes. The room was completely full of animals and birds of all shapes and sizes, and they all looked very happy indeed now that they were warm and full of Mrs. Witherspoon's delicious pies. Milton was very pleased with himself, but Douglas was beginning to get rather worried. The house was full of wildlife and all the pies were gone. "Oh no!" thought Douglas. Milton and Douglas quickly rounded up the animals and led them into the garden. The squirrels hopped back into their hole in the oak tree just as Mrs. Witherspoon opened the garden gate. "I've just seen 2 squirrels," she said to Douglas as she came into the kitchen. "You don't usually see much wildlife this time of year." "You should have been here 2 minutes ago," thought Douglas. Mrs. Witherspoon put down her shopping. "Now, Douglas," she said, "I promised you a pie, didn't I?" To her surprise, they were all gone. Not even a single crumb was left. "Well," she said, "it looks as if you've had more than your fair share already, you greedy dog." "But I haven't even had one," thought Douglas miserably as he went back into the parlor. "That's okay, Douglas," said Milton. "I saved one for you." Milton pushed the pie over the edge of the mantelpiece, and Douglas gobbled it up in a flash. "I saved it from last Christmas," added Milton. "I never have liked pies." Douglas didn't seem to mind and stretched out in front of the fire for another nap. "Come on, spring," he thought.